Sizwe is determined to lift his hard-working mother out of poverty immediately, seeing the multi-million rand payouts from illegal betting rings as the only fast track. Using his mathematical mind, he starts winning consistently, quickly gaining a reputation and attracting the attention of local figures who run the operations. He falls deeply in love with Lindiwe, who is initially drawn to his sharp intellect and passion, but grows increasingly concerned by his reckless ambition and the late-night meeting he keeps. His successful bets bring temporary money and a surge of false happiness. He buys his mother a new appliance and takes Lindiwe on expensive dates. However, the wins come with a heavy cost. He starts skipping school to track matches and gets entangled with a menacing bookie. The climax arrives when Sizwe makes a massive, all-or-nothing bet, staking his mother's small savings which he took without her permission, on a crucial football match. He believes this win will be the ultimate fulfillment and secure his future with Lindiwe. Instead, the team loses in a shock upset, facing crushing debt and the possibility of violence. Sizwe finally breaks down and confesses to Lindiwe. She helps him see that true love and fulfillment lie not in the adrenaline rush of quick wealth, but in using his incredible math skills honestly. Together, they develop a plan. Sizwe stood on the ridge overlooking Durban's bustling harbour, the salty wind whipping at his school uniform. Below him, massive container ships symbolized the wealth and opportunities that felt impossibly far from his crowded home in Mlazi. His mind, brilliant with numbers and mathematical patterns, calculated the odds of his future high if he could find a ladder, 0 if he stayed put. He was tired of seeing his mother, Mazuma, wake before dawn to catch the taxi to her cleaning job, her back perpetually bowed from the struggle. The gap between his talent and his reality was a chasm he desperately needed to bridge, and conventional routes like applying for student loans felt too slow, too reliant on a system that rarely favored the poor. In the classroom, his gaze drifted from the differential equations on the blackboard to the worn leather of his shoe. He knew he was smarter than the system that demanded patience. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. Lately, his sharp eye had fixed on the local sports page, not for the love of the game, but for the predictable data. He'd spent weeks logging results, studying team dynamics, and creating algorithms far more complex than anything required in his math syllabus. It wasn't about luck, he reasoned. It was about science. If the rich made money from manipulating markets, why couldn't he apply his gift to manipulate the odds? The feeling of injustice that his genius was being wasted on textbook examples fueled his burgeoning recklessness. Lindiwe spent her afternoons in the small, sun-drenched community library, the scent of old paper a comforting balm against the noise of the city. She was meticulously preparing for the National Academic Scholarship exam, her focus absolute. Unlike Sizwe, she believed entirely in the long game. Hard work, consistency, and integrity were the only formulas for genuine success. Her part-time job shelving books provided just enough money for stationery and a few groceries, easing the burden on her aunt, who had taken her in after her parents passed. One afternoon, she found Sizwe hunched over a stack of statistics printouts, not textbooks. He was tracking goal averages and player injuries with the same intensity she applied to history facts. When he finally looked up, his smile was instantly disarming, and their conversation flowed effortlessly from the complexity of prime numbers to the injustice of the local bus routes. Lindiwe recognized a formidable intellect in him, one that, if channeled correctly, could truly change his life. She felt an immediate pull towards him, a desire to anchor his raw, volatile potential with her own steady determination. Sizwe needed a starting stake. He pulled the small change he had saved for a new pair of shoes, and took his calculated risk on an obscure European football match. He used an anonymous betting agency he had found online, carefully avoiding the local, dangerous street bookies. The tension of waiting for the result felt like a physical weight, heavier than any exam stress. When the notification popped up, a small, satisfying green number confirming his win, a surge of triumph and relief washed over him. The profit was small enough for groceries, but the principle was immense. His system worked. He walked home that evening, the weight of the harbour momentarily lifted, feeling like he had cracked the code to his escape. He bought his mother extra chicken, claiming he'd won a small school prize. Mizuma's tired eyes lit up with pride, and that genuine, loving response solidified the deception in his mind. This was good. This was necessary. His initial success emboldened Sizwe. He dedicated every free moment to refining his algorithm, feeding it more data, cross-referencing weather reports and coach histories. He saw betting as a logistical challenge, not a moral one. His math teacher, Mr. Dlamini, noticed his renewed focus, misinterpreting his intense concentration as dedication to calculus. Sizwe accepted the praise with a growing sense of guilt. But the law of the fast money was too strong to resist. He started spending less time with his study group and more time at an internet cafe hidden deep in the city, monitoring real-time odds. Lindiwe, who valued punctuality and transparency, began to notice his evasiveness. He was always catching up on extra assignments or helping an uncle. He gifted her a beautiful, expensive silver pendant, claiming he had done some odd jobs. While touched by the gift, Lindiwe felt a chill of suspicion. The gift felt too generous, too sudden, and she couldn't reconcile the money required for it with the humble odd jobs he described. Siz's bankroll grew quickly, allowing him to replace his threadbare uniform and worn shoes with smart, branded clothing. The change in his appearance was immediate and dramatic. He walked with a new, swaggering confidence that turned heads in the school hallways. His friends, initially impressed, began to ask questions he couldn't answer honestly. He and Lindiwe began dating officially, spending their time at beachfront cafes instead of the library. Lindiwe loved his ambition and wit, but the new, extravagant spending unsettled her. "Where is all this money coming from, Sizwe? I know how much your mother works," she pressed, her voice gentle but firm. Sizwe smoothly deflected, talking vaguely about a stock market and his mathematical genius finally paying off. He knew his lies were becoming more elaborate, but he justified them by focusing on the ultimate goal, a future where Lindiwe and his mother would never want for anything. Mizuma was overwhelmed by the new items Sizwe brought home: a high-quality second-hand tablet for his studies, a reliable water pump for their communal tap, and a better mattress for her aching back. She beamed with pride, telling the neighbors her son was destined for greatness. Yet, a knot of worry tightened in her stomach. She knew the struggle of honest labor, and this sudden tide of wealth felt unnatural to easy. One evening, she found a betting slip tucked into his jacket pocket. It was small, crumpled, and the numbers made no sense to her. But the word sport pesa glared like an accusation. When she confronted him, Sizwe expertly minimized it. "Mama, it was a one-time thing, a small fun bet with friends. It's harmless, I promise." His denial was passionate and convincing, and desperate to believe in her son's good fortune. Mizuma let the matter drop, but the seed of distrust remained buried in her heart. Siz's winning streak had become too predictable for the anonymous online sites. He needed bigger limits and quicker payouts. This led him to a small, smoky backroom operation near the Beria road station, run by a man named Vusi. Vusi was sleek, menacing, and dressed in expensive but ill-fitting suits. He had eyes that seemed to weigh a person's worth purely in rands. Vusi, initially skeptical of the clean-cut schoolboy, quickly recognized Siz's extraordinary mathematical acuity. He was willing to take Siz's large bets, but the terms were different. No paper trail, all cash, and the penalties for failure were not fines, but unspoken threats. Sizwe tried to reassure himself that his system was infallible, but the air in Vusi's office, thick with desperation and cheap cologne, felt heavier than anything he had experienced before. He was officially in deep, trading the quiet anxiety of poverty for the loud, aggressive anxiety of the high-stakes game. The demands of Vusi's operation began to conflict directly with school. Sizwe needed real-time information, often requiring him to step away from classes, to field calls or rush to the internet cafe during school hours. His attendance record suffered, and Mr. Dlamini finally called him aside, expressing concern. Sizwe brushed it off, claiming a persistent family illness was taking up his time. Lindiwe, noticing the dark circles under his eyes and his quick temper when discussing school, grew increasingly upset. She saw his academic potential, the only real key to sustainable fulfillment, slipping away. "You are throwing away your scholarship chance, Sizwe. That is guaranteed money, not a lottery ticket," she argued. But he dismissed her caution as fear and small-mindedness. "This is better than a scholarship, Lindiwe. This is freedom. I don't need their handouts when I can take what I deserve," he retorted, his voice edged with the arrogance of a consistent winner. To silence Lindiwe's anxieties and soothe his own guilt, Sizwe planned an extravagant gesture. He took her to a high-end restaurant on the beachfront, a place where their families would never dare to step. He bought her a beautiful silk scarf and spoke of the future house, a car, a life of ease. Lindiwe looked around at the dazzling lights and the wealthy patrons. but her gaze kept returning to Siz's tense jaw and the constant, subtle glances he cast at his phone. "It's not about the money, Sizwe. It's about the source," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I want you, the real you, focused on engineering, not this shadow life." Sizwe countered by saying the money was the key to the life she wanted. A life where her dreams wouldn't be crushed by financial need. He convinced her momentarily, with the strength of his conviction and the promise of a glorious, shared future. But Lindiwe couldn't shake the feeling that she was dating two different boys, the brilliant student and the secretive high roller. Siz's mother, Mazuma, had fallen behind on paying a small but crippling debt for a new, essential piece of equipment for her cleaning business, a pressure washer. The creditor was demanding immediate payment, threatening to seize the equipment. Sizwe saw this not as a crisis, but as an opportunity to prove his worth beyond doubt. He placed a significant bet, larger than any he had attempted before, confident in his algorithm's latest prediction. The stress was immense, but the result was a triumph. He walked into his home and slapped a thick wad of cash onto the kitchen table, enough to cover the debt and pay for months of supplies. Mazuma wept with relief and pride, finally silencing the nagging voice of suspicion. This act of genuine relief solidified his conviction that the ends justified the means. As his association with Vusi deepened, Sizwe acquired a second, inexpensive burner phone, known only to the betting world. It was a clear demarcation. His main phone was for Lindiwe, his family and school. The burner was for business, filled with coded messages, cryptic match results, and urgent calls. Lindiwe discovered the phone one afternoon while Sizwe was showering. She didn't check the messages. Her moral compass prevented her from violating his privacy, but the mere existence of a second, hidden device confirmed her deepest fears about his deception. When she confronted him, Sizwe exploded in a fit of defensive rage, accusing her of mistrust and surveillance, making her feel guilty for his secretiveness. The fight ended in a cold stalemate, their first serious rupture, leaving Lindiwe heartbroken and Sizwe more isolated. Vusi began to demand more than just money from Sizwe. He wanted Sizwe to start tutoring some of the other bettors on how to use his probability models to boost their success. This meant Sizwe was no longer just a player, but a small-time insider, privy to the shady side of the operation. He met with older, hardened men whose desperation was palpable and whose success was clearly built on exploiting others. The experience was jarring. These men were not engineering students or scholars. They were addicts and opportunists. Sizwe found himself giving them simplified versions of his complex theories, feeling a cold detachment. He rationalized that he was merely a service provider. But the grim realities of the gambling world were now visible up close, casting a heavy shadow over his initial self-righteous pursuit of easy money. In contrast to Siz's downward spiral, Lindiwe redoubled her efforts for the academic scholarship. She saw it as her only pathway to fulfillment and independence. She spent weekends volunteering at a tutoring center, reinforcing her knowledge and finding solace in honest effort. She missed the old Sizwe, the boy who would talk late into the night about the beauty of physics, the boy who respected the path of hard work. She knew she couldn't save him, and the pain of their estrangement was becoming unbearable. She realized that her own integrity was non-negotiable, and if their paths diverged because of his choices, she would have to let him go. Her focus on the scholarship became an anchor, tethering her to her values while Sizwe drifted into the murky waters of risk. Sizwe decided to make a large investment in his family's future, something concrete to silence any remaining doubts. He paid a significant portion towards a small plot of land near their home, officially putting the title in his mother's name. This act of money and generosity was met with overwhelming joy from Mazuma. She hugged him, tears streaming down her face, thanking him for being the son she always knew he would be. The land purchase secured his mother's belief in his legitimate success, making the truth even harder to admit. He told Lindiwe he had cashed out a successful investment portfolio, managed by a friend. Lindiwe tried to share her joy, but the deception felt like a heavy stone in her hand. She accepted the gift to his mother, but the lie that accompanied it felt like a growing war between them. The external facade of happiness was complete, but the inner foundation was rotting. The tension between the couple peaked during a school awards assembly, where Lindiwe was honored for her tutoring efforts. Sizwe was late, having been delayed by an urgent meeting with Vusi. He arrived flustered, smelling faintly of smoke and desperation, completely missing the ceremony. That evening, Lindiwe's quiet strength solidified into an unyielding resolve. She met him at the beachfront pier, the ocean roaring a fitting backdrop to their confrontation. "I cannot do this anymore, Sizwe. I don't know who you are, or where this money comes from. I cannot build my life on a foundation of lies and secrets," she stated, her voice shaking but firm. "Until you stop, and until you tell me the truth." "We are done," Sizwe, stunned by her departure, watched her walk away, realizing that his pursuit of quick wealth had cost him the one person who represented true, genuine love and integrity. Lindiwe's absence left a gaping hole in Siz's life. He tried to fill it with more intense betting, viewing the money as a balm for his loneliness. He won the next major bets easily, amassing a significant sum. He bought himself a new, powerful laptop, telling himself he was investing in his engineering future, but he only used it to run more intricate simulations for the betting ring. The money no longer brought joy. It only brought silence. He realized that the extravagant purchases were meaningless without Lindiwe's genuine pride or his mother's informed consent. The taste of victory was metallic and hollow, lacking the sweetness of shared success. His forced smile in public hid a growing, desperate anxiety, the realization that he was deeply isolated in his deceit. Fusi, noticing Siz's new focus and desperation, moved in to solidify his control. He offered Sizwe an actual, salaried position as his analyst, legitimizing his presence in the betting world and providing him with a small, steady income outside the actual betting. This move was strategic, hooking Sizwe with regular cash flow while increasing the size of the wagers he was responsible for calculating. Sizwe accepted, seeing it as a necessary evil to keep the cash flowing and prove his mathematical superiority. He was now officially skipping school not just to place bets, but to work. Fusi gave him a cramped office space and a set of keys, making Sizwe feel important, but also effectively cutting him off from the world of high school and legitimate aspiration. He was now trapped between two worlds, sinking deeper into Fusi's control. The deadline for the National University Engineering application was fast approaching, requiring complex essays and detailed project proposals. Sizwe could barely focus. His mind was constantly analyzing odds, checking fluctuating markets, and anticipating Fusi's next move. His application remained untouched. He tried to study one night, opening his textbooks, but the numbers blurred into probability tables. He was haunted by the image of Lindiwe's face when she talked about his potential. He convinced himself that he was already a successful financial engineer and that formal education was a redundant path. But deep down, he knew he was trading a genuine, intellectually fulfilling career for a dangerous, unsustainable hustle. The dream of fulfillment was replaced by the anxiety of survival. Mizuma noticed the late nights, the secretive phone calls, and the expensive clothes that seemed ill-suited for a student. Sizwe had stopped attending school regularly, claiming he had already passed enough credits. She visited the school and spoke with Mr. Dlamini, who sadly confirmed Siz's severe decline in attendance and academic performance. Confronted with the evidence, Siz's lies became aggressive and furious. He screamed that he was building a legitimate business and that she was trying to keep him poor. Mizuma, heartbroken, retreated, but her faith in him was severely shaken. The small plot of land he had bought her now felt like a bribe, a silence payment, and the joy she had initially felt turned into a deep, consuming worry about the moral character of her only son. Lindiwe, though heartbroken, remained firm in her decision. She found strength in her pursuit of the scholarship, channeling her emotional pain into intellectual focus. She often saw Sizwe near the station, impeccably dressed, but always looking over his shoulder, a hunted look in his eyes. He would try to approach her, promising to change, offering more gifts, but she refused to engage. She told him softly but clearly that she couldn't accept anything he hadn't earned through honest means. Her true love for him was contingent on his integrity, not his wealth. She focused on her exams, determined to win the scholarship to prove that hard work and ethical choices, though slow, were the superior path to lasting happiness. Fusi's bets grew bolder, driven by Siz's calculated forecasts. The stakes were no longer small time. They were involving thousands of rands, often backed by Fusi's powerful and unseen investors. Sizwe felt the intense pressure of these high-stakes decisions. A single incorrect calculation could result in a devastating loss. The thrill of victory was now completely overshadowed by the fear of defeat. He started sleeping less, running simulations constantly, his once tidy mind becoming fragmented and paranoid. He realized he wasn't controlling the odds. He was a slave to them. a high-functioning addict dependent on the next win to stave off catastrophe. Siz's system, while mathematically sound, had overlooked a human variable: corruption. A high-profile, seemingly impossible upset loss for Vuse's syndicate was traced back to a small, crucial detail Siz's model couldn't predict: a fixed game. Vusi lost a significant amount of money. The air in Vuse's office turned instantly toxic. Vusi didn't blame Sizwe directly, but made it clear that a mistake of that magnitude would not be tolerated again. Sizwe, terrified, realized that his brilliance was meaningless against the ugly reality of organized gambling. He was no longer playing a game of numbers. He was playing a game of power with real, dangerous consequences. Under pressure from Vusi to prove his value and recoup the syndicate's losses, Sizwe began making impulsive, emotional bets, the exact opposite of his initial, calculated strategy. His logical mind was clouded by fear and a frantic need to control the uncontrollable. He started borrowing small, manageable amounts from Vusi to increase his own personal stake, justifying it as necessary collateral. This was the true trap. He was now indebted to the very machine he intended to exploit. The line between Sizwe, the master analyst, and Sizwe, the desperate addict, blurred entirely. Lindiwe saw Sizwe again, this time outside her library, looking strained and ill. He tried to apologize, not for his actions, but for the distance between them. She noticed a flash of genuine fear in his eyes. "You look like you're running, Sizwe," she observed quietly. He denied it, launching into a manic description of his latest successful venture, talking about massive earnings and future global expansion. Lindiwe cut him short. "I saw your mother, Sizwe. She is scared. What you are doing is destroying your family, not helping them." Her words were a sobering splash of cold water, but Sizwe was too deep in the current to swim back. He left angry, but her truth echoed in his mind. Sizwe, overwhelmed by the darkness of his new life, tried to recapture a moment of normalcy. He found Mr. Dlamini after school, asked for help with a complex engineering problem, something unrelated to betting. For an hour, he was the brilliant student again, energized by the purity of mathematics. Mr. Dlamini, noticing the flicker of the old Sizwe, encouraged him to return to school. "Your brain is a treasure, Sizwe. Don't sell it for quick plastic. Use it to build something lasting." Sizwe felt a powerful pang of regret, a longing for the fulfilling path he had abandoned. But when his burner phone buzzed with an urgent coded message from Vusi, the illusion of normalcy shattered, pulling him back into the shadows. Unable to shake her suspicion, Mazuma quietly visited the street where Sizwe claimed his business was located. She found the unassuming storefront that housed Vusi's betting operation. She saw the men who came and went, their desperate faces etched with greed and loss. She did not confront Sizwe immediately. Instead, she started to hide her money, transferring small amounts from her bank account to a neighbor's trusted custody. She was preparing for the inevitable crash, bracing herself for the day her ambitious son's house of cards would fall, ready to catch him when he did. Her protective instinct, hardened by years of struggle, became her silent, strategic defense. Vusi, needing a substantial win, demanded Sizwe identify the next sure thing, a bet large enough to wipe out the recent syndicate losses. Sizwe spent 2 agonizing days running non-stop simulations. He fixated on an upcoming match, the Premier Soccer League final, a highly volatile game with huge odds. He presented his findings to Vusi, his voice strained but confident. The statistical analysis showed a marginal but exploitable weakness in the favored team. Vusi, however, needed a massive margin of safety. He told Sizwe to find a way to sweeten the pot, suggesting that a small personal stake from Sizwe would show his confidence and secure the deal. Sizwe knew this was the tipping point, the irreversible choice. Torn by the pressure and driven by a desperate need to impress Vusi and prove himself to Lindiwe, Sizwe decided he would place the largest personal bet of his life on the PSL final. But his cash reserves were depleted. He needed a significant sum to be taken seriously. He remembered his mother's small savings account, the money she had slowly accrued over decades for her retirement. He knew the bank card was hidden in an old tin in the kitchen. In the dead of night, while Mazuma slept, Sizwe slipped the card out and memorized the pin. The act felt cold and clinical, the final betrayal of his family, justified only by the delusional belief that he was about to multiply it tenfold and bring them unimaginable wealth and happiness. Sizwe made one last attempt to win Lindiwe back with a lie. He found her studying, a peaceful figure in the library light. He told her he was quitting his investment firm and going back to school. but he needed to make one final, massive trade to secure their future first. Lindiwe looked at him, not with anger, but with profound pity. "You are lying to yourself, Sizwe. You don't trade money. You gamble with fear. You don't need a final trade. You need a fresh start." She refused to engage further, her boundaries firm. She told him she had passed the first round of the scholarship exams. Her fulfillment was in her own hands, and she would not compromise it for his volatile fantasy. Sizwe walked into Views's office, the weight of his mother's stolen savings burning in his pocket. He handed the cash over, his hand trembling slightly. He smiled, a cold, predatory gleam in his eyes. "That's how confidence looks, Sizwe. Welcome to the big leagues." The syndicate's massive bet, combined with his substantial personal stake, was placed. The final, terrifying wager was sealed. Sizwe was now officially tied to the outcome of a single football match. With his family's financial stability, his freedom, and his last vestiges of integrity hanging precariously on the performance of 22 strangers on a distant pitch. The thrill was gone, replaced entirely by suffocating dread.